The brilliant blue-green holographic display flickered across the command center of Helion Breakthrough Station. A three-dimensional map of space stretched before General Arcanus, displaying the outer rim territories under his jurisdiction. His six-fingered hand stroked the ridge of scales along his jawline as he studied the defensive grid being constructed along the Empire's frontier. "Status report on the new defense matrix," he demanded, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic undertone of the Imperial High Command. Major Velta, the station's senior sensor officer, straightened her uniform before responding. Her violet eyes reflected the glow of the monitoring systems surrounding her workstation. "Construction proceeds on schedule. General, the automated defense platforms in Sectors 7 through 12 are operational. Sectors 13 through 18 will be online within 36 hours. Arcanus nodded, satisfaction evident in his posture. The Helion Station represented the Empire's most advanced outpost, a testament to their technological superiority and expanding reach across the galaxy. For centuries, the Empire had pushed outward, subjugating or destroying any species that challenged their manifest destiny. Humans had been among the few who had maintained their independence, largely through isolation and careful diplomacy rather than military strength. "The Emperor will be pleased," Arcanus said. "Once this defense network is complete, not even the most advanced stealth technology could penetrate our borders undetected." Velta permitted herself a small smile. "Indeed, sir. The probability calculations suggest a 97% detection rate for any known vessel configurations. Unknown to the Imperial forces, at that very moment, approximately 500,000 kilometers away, the human battleship Valiant was preparing to make history." Commodore Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of the Valiant, her dark eyes fixed on the main view screen. At 42 years old, she had risen through the ranks of Earth's United Defense Force with a reputation for calculated boldness. Her short black hair was streaked with premature gray, a testament to the stress of command, but her posture remained straight as steel, projecting confidence to her crew. "Cross-dimensional drive status?" she asked, her voice calm despite the historic nature of their mission. Chief Engineer Nakamura's voice came through the communication system. "Cross-dimensional matrix stabilized at 93%. Commodore, we're ready for the jump." The year was 2297, and humanity had finally achieved what many had considered impossible: the ability to slip between the dimensional barriers of space-time, effectively bypassing conventional defenses. The Valiant represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, a vessel capable of appearing virtually anywhere in known space with minimal warning. Elena took a deep breath. The mission was clear: demonstrate humanity's new capabilities to the Empire in a show of force that would bring them to the negotiating table without triggering all-out war. The Valiant would penetrate to the heart of the Empire's new defensive network, appearing directly before Helion Station, then transmit their message of peaceful strength. "All personnel, secure for dimensional transition," Elena announced, her voice carrying throughout the ship. "Engage cross-dimensional drive on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark." The Valiant shimmered and seemed to fold inward upon itself before disappearing completely from normal space. At Helion Station, Major Velta was the first to notice something amiss. Her monitoring system suddenly registered an anomalous energy signature directly ahead of the station, a reading so unusual that at first, she assumed it was a sensor malfunction. "General Arcanus," she called, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. "I'm detecting a massive energy spike at coordinates 227 by 384, range 20,000 kilometers and closing." Arcanus strode to her station, eyes narrowing as he examined the readings. "That's impossible. Nothing could approach this close without triggering the long-range detection grid." "The signature is consistent with a large vessel, sir," Velta reported, her fingers flying over the controls as she attempted to get clearer readings. "But the approach vector doesn't match any known trajectory. It's as if it simply appeared. Before Arcanus could respond, the main view screen flickered to life automatically, revealing a sleek, gunmetal gray vessel with unmistakable human design characteristics approaching the station. Despite its size, comparable to a mid-class Imperial destroyer, it moved with astonishing grace and precision. "By the Emperor's blood," Arcanus whispered, a rare display of emotion from the typically stoic general. "How did a human battleship get this close? Sound the alarm! All defense systems online!" The station's klaxons began to wail as the command center erupted into controlled chaos. Officers rushed to their battle stations, while Arcanus barked orders, his military training taking over. "Contact Imperial Command. Inform them we have a Code Crimson incursion at Helion Station. Deploy all patrol vessels and activate the defense grid." Major Velta's voice cut through the noise. "Sir, the vessel is broadcasting on an open frequency. They're requesting communication." Arcanus's expression hardened. On screen, the face of Commodore Elena Reyes appeared before them, calm and composed, despite the enormity of what she had just accomplished. "This is Commodore Elena Reyes of the Earth vessel Valiant. We come in peace, but with purpose. I request immediate dialogue with the commander of Helion Station." Arcanus straightened to his full height, towering over his subordinates. "This is General Arcanus of the Imperial Forces. Your presence here constitutes an act of aggression against the Empire. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Elena's expression remained unchanged. "General, if we intended aggression, we would not be having this conversation. The fact that we stand before you, having bypassed your entire defense network, should demonstrate that our technology has evolved beyond your understanding. We seek dialogue, not conflict. You have precisely 10 minutes to reverse course." Arcanus replied coldly, "After which, I will consider your vessel a hostile target." He signaled for the communication to be cut. As the screen went dark, Colonel Soren, Arcanus's military advisor, approached. "Sir, we should strike immediately. Their presence here represents an unprecedented security breach." Arcanus shook his head. "Not yet. Assemble the command council in the strategic chamber, and maintain all weapons at ready status." Aboard the Valiant, Engineer Nakamura's voice came through with urgent undertones. "Commodore, the dimensional stabilizers are showing signs of stress. The transition was rougher than our simulations predicted. We need to allow the systems to cool down before attempting another jump." Elena processed this information quickly. Their escape route was temporarily compromised, which changed the tactical situation significantly. "Understood. How long until we can jump again?" "At least 2 hours, possibly 3, Nakamura replied. "I've got my team working on it, but pushing the system could result in catastrophic failure." Communications Officer Ruiz turned from her station. "Commodore, I'm detecting multiple smaller vessels launching from the station. They appear to be patrol craft, arming weapon systems." Elena nodded calmly. "Maintain our position. Lieutenant Ruiz, continue broadcasting our peaceful intentions on all frequencies. Tactical, bring defense systems to standby. But do not target Imperial vessels unless directly fired upon." Inside the strategic chamber of Helion Station, Arcanus stood before the assembled command council, 6 senior officers representing different aspects of the station's operations. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the Valiant, floating serenely against the backdrop of space. "The vessel appeared without warning," Arcanus explained. "None of our perimeter sensors detected its approach. It simply materialized within our inner defense perimeter." Colonel Soren, a veteran of 3 frontier campaigns against various alien species, spoke first. "This represents a critical threat to Imperial security. If the humans possess technology that can bypass our defenses, we must capture or destroy that vessel at all costs." Commander Telvik, head of the station's scientific division, offered a different perspective. The energy readings from the human vessel suggest a form of dimensional manipulation we've only theorized about. This could be a scientific breakthrough of immense significance. Science be damned, Soren countered. That ship could be carrying any manner of weapons. For all we know, this could be the prelude to a full-scale human invasion. Arcanus raised a hand to silence the debate. What matters now is how we respond. The human commander claims to seek dialogue, but this demonstration of force suggests otherwise. Unless, interjected Ambassador Calera, the station's diplomatic representative. This is precisely what the human commander claimed. A demonstration designed to bring us to the negotiating table from a position of technological parity rather than weakness. Arcanus considered this. Interesting theory, Ambassador, but the Empire does not negotiate under threat. Then what do you propose, General? Calera asked. Arcanus studied the holographic image of the Valiant. We will proceed with a measured response. Colonel Soren, coordinate our patrol vessels to establish a containment formation around the human ship. Commander Telvik, I want every sensor focused on analyzing their technology. Ambassador Calera, prepare for possible negotiations, but only after we've established our strength. As the Council dispersed to carry out their assignments, Arcanus remained, staring at the hovering image of the Valiant. How did you do it? He muttered to himself. And what else are you capable of? On the bridge of the Valiant, tension mounted as Imperial patrol vessels took up positions around them. The sleek, predatory shapes of the Empire's attack craft contrasted sharply with the more utilitarian design of the human battleship. 22 Imperial vessels now in formation around us, Tactical Officer Park reported. Their weapon systems are powered, but not directly targeted. Elena nodded. A show of force without immediate aggression. Exactly what I would do in their position. She turned to Ruiz. Any response to our communications? Nothing official, Commodore, Ruiz replied. But I'm detecting increased chatter between the patrol vessels and the station. They're discussing us, trying to determine our capabilities. In engineering, Nakamura and his team worked feverishly to stabilize the cross-dimensional drive. The experimental technology had performed admirably during the jump, but the strain on the ship's systems had been greater than anticipated. Warning indicators flashed across his console as he rerouted power and adjusted the dimensional stabilizers. Torres, get me a diagnostic on the spatial matrix. He ordered one of his engineers. Yamada, monitor the quantum fluctuations in the drive core. If we see anything above 4.7 on the Planck scale, initiate emergency shutdown protocols. The tension in engineering matched that on the bridge. Everyone aboard the Valiant understood the historic nature of their mission and the dangers it entailed. They had effectively invaded Imperial space, albeit with peaceful intentions. If diplomacy failed, they would face the full might of the Empire's military with a potentially crippled escape mechanism. As the tense standoff continued, Major Velta on Helion Station made another discovery. General Arcanus, she reported, via secure channel. Our deep scans of the human vessel are revealing unusual energy patterns. They appear to be experiencing some form of system instability. Arcanus received this information in his private command chamber. Explain. The energy signature that allowed them to appear in our space is fluctuating. My analysis suggests they may be experiencing technical difficulties with whatever transportation system they use to breach our defenses. A slow smile spread across Arcanus's face. So they're vulnerable. Excellent work. Major. Continue monitoring and report any changes. He opened a channel to Colonel Soren. Colonel, it appears our visitors may be experiencing some difficulties. Prepare the patrol fleet for possible engagement, but await my command. With pleasure, General, Soren replied, barely concealing his enthusiasm. 2 hours into the standoff, the first direct confrontation occurred. One of the Imperial patrol vessels, commanded by an overzealous captain seeking to distinguish himself, broke formation, and executed a high-speed pass near the Valiant. Sensors, probing aggressively for weaknesses. Park Station beeped an alert. Commodore, one Imperial vessel is making a close approach. Active scanning beams directed at our hull. Elena remained calm. Maintain our position. Do not respond unless they take hostile action. The Imperial vessel completed its pass, then abruptly swung around for a second approach, this time with weapon systems fully powered. They're targeting our propulsion systems, Park warned, tension evident in his voice. Elena made a split-second decision. Activate the dimensional shadow, localized field only. This order initiated one of the Valiant's secondary systems, a limited application of their cross-dimensional technology that briefly shifted a portion of the ship slightly out of phase with normal space. As the Imperial vessel fired, its energy weapons passed harmlessly through the suddenly insubstantial aft section of the Valiant before the ship fully rematerialized. On the Imperial vessel, confusion reigned. "Captain, our weapons had no effect," the tactical officer reported in disbelief. "The target area simply wasn't there when our beams made contact." The captain stared at his view screen in shock. "Impossible! Fire again!" Before they could retarget, General Arcanus's voice thundered through their communication system. "Captain Merricks, stand down immediately! You fired without authorization!" "General, I was merely—" "Return to formation immediately," Arcanus commanded. "Report to my office upon your return to the station." The patrol vessel reluctantly complied, returning to its position in the containment formation. But the incident had changed the dynamic of the confrontation. The Empire had fired first, and their weapons had proven ineffective. On Hellion Station, Arcanus reviewed the sensor data from the encounter with growing concern. "They can selectively phase parts of their vessel out of normal space," he mused aloud to Major Velta. "The implications are troubling." "Indeed, sir," Velta agreed. "If they can apply this technology offensively." The thought remained unspoken, but both understood the danger. A weapon that could phase through shields and hull material would render conventional defenses useless. Arcanus made his decision. "Summon Colonel Soren and Ambassador Calera. It's time to change our approach." When they arrived, Arcanus outlined the situation bluntly. "The humans possess technology beyond our current understanding. Their demonstration suggests they could have penetrated our defenses at any time, possibly for years, without our knowledge." Soren's expression darkened. "All the more reason to destroy them now, while we have them surrounded." "And if there are more ships with similar capabilities?" Arcanus countered. "No, Colonel. We need information before we commit to military action." He turned to Ambassador Calera. "Prepare to open negotiations. I want to know what they want, what they know about us, and most importantly, the full extent of their technological capabilities." Calera nodded. "A wise decision, General." "But," Arcanus continued, "we negotiate from a position of strength. Colonel Soren, order the fleet to maintain their containment formation and put our heavy weapons platforms on standby. If negotiations fail, we will destroy the human vessel with overwhelming force." As Arcanus's subordinates departed to carry out his orders, he returned his attention to the view screen, showing the Valiant. "Let's see what game you're playing, Commodore Reyes." Aboard the Valiant, Elena received the Empire's communication request with cautious optimism. "It appears our demonstration had the desired effect," she remarked to her first officer, Commander Santiago. Santiago nodded. "The question is whether they're genuinely interested in dialogue or simply buying time to position their forces. Either way, we proceed as planned." Elena decided. "Lieutenant Ruiz, open a channel." The face of Ambassador Calera appeared on the view screen. Her scaled features arranged in a diplomatic smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Commodore Reyes, I am Ambassador Calera of the Galactic Empire. General Arcanus has authorized me to open preliminary discussions regarding your unexpected visit to our territory. Elena inclined her head slightly. Ambassador Calera, I appreciate the opportunity for dialogue. As I stated earlier, our presence here is not an act of aggression, but rather a demonstration of a new reality that both our peoples must address. And what reality might that be, Commodore? Calera asked, her tone carefully neutral. That the traditional boundaries of space are no longer the barriers they once were. Elena explained. Humanity has developed technology that renders conventional defenses, including those being constructed around the Helion system, effectively obsolete. Calera's expression remained unchanged, but her secondary eyelids flickered briefly, a sign of surprise or stress in her species. An interesting claim. Yet here you are, a single vessel surrounded by our fleet. Your position seems precarious for one making such bold assertions. Elena smiled slightly. Our position is exactly where we choose to be, Ambassador. We could have appeared directly inside your station had we wished. We selected this location specifically to allow for peaceful communication while demonstrating our capabilities. What exactly does humanity want, Commodore? Calera asked, cutting to the heart of the matter. Recognition and respect, Elena replied simply. For too long, the Empire has viewed humanity as a minor power to be tolerated rather than an equal to be engaged with. We seek a formal treaty acknowledging our sovereignty and establishing clear protocols for interaction between our civilizations. Calera's expression revealed nothing. I will convey your request to General Arcanus. In the meantime, please maintain your current position. As the communication ended, Santiago turned to Elena. Do you think they'll agree to real negotiations? Elena's expression was grim. They'll talk. The question is whether they're sincere or simply planning their attack. In engineering, Nakamura had news. Commodore, we've stabilized the cross-dimensional drive. We could execute an emergency jump if necessary, but I wouldn't recommend it for at least another hour. The system needs time to fully reset. Understood, Elena replied. Keep working on it. I want that drive ready at a moment's notice. On Helion Station, Arcanus received Calera's report with skepticism. They seek recognition and respect? After this display of aggression? I believe they're sincere, General, Calera replied. Their actions, while provocative, have been carefully calibrated to demonstrate capability without causing harm. Colonel Soren scoffed. They violated our sovereign territory, bypassed our defenses, and now demand recognition? This is nothing short of blackmail. Perhaps, Calera conceded, but it is also an opportunity. If their technology is as advanced as it appears, better to have them as allies than enemies. Arcanus paced the command center, considering his options. The Empire had faced technological challenges before and had always emerged victorious, often by assimilating the very technologies used against them. But this situation felt different. The humans had not simply developed a better weapon or a faster ship. They had fundamentally changed the rules of engagement. Colonel Soren, he said finally, what is the status of our heavy weapons platforms? Fully operational, sir, Soren replied eagerly. We can target the human vessel from multiple vectors simultaneously. Even with their phasing ability, they cannot evade concentrated fire from all directions. Arcanus nodded slowly. And our reinforcements? The battle group from Sector 7 has responded to our alert. They will arrive within 30 minutes. Very well. Arcanus turned to Ambassador Calera. Inform Commodore Reyes that I am considering her request for formal negotiations. Request that she provide detailed information about her vessel's capabilities as a show of good faith. As Calera departed, Soren approached Arcanus. You don't actually intend to negotiate, do you, sir? Of course not, Arcanus replied coldly. But I intend to be holding a much stronger hand when I refuse their demands. Elena received the Empire's response with skepticism. They're stalling, she concluded, after reviewing Ambassador Kalara's message. Tactical. Any changes in the Imperial fleet disposition? Park studied his displays. The patrol vessels maintain their containment formation, but I'm detecting increased energy readings from the station itself. They appear to be powering up additional weapon systems. And long-range sensors? Multiple contacts approaching from the outer system, Park confirmed. Consistent with Imperial military vessels. Estimated arrival time, 28 minutes. Elena's expression hardened. They never intended to negotiate in good faith. They're simply buying time until reinforcements arrive. She turned to Santiago. It's time for Phase 2. Santiago nodded grimly. Are you sure, Commodore? Once we escalate, there's no turning back. They've already made their decision, Elena replied. Now we show them the consequences. She opened a shipwide channel. All hands, battle stations. Prepare for Dimensional Maneuver Protocol, Echo 7. Throughout the Valiant, crew members rushed to secure equipment and prepare for what was to come. In engineering, Nakamura received the order with mixed emotions. Commodore, the drive system is operational, but not at full capacity. We can execute Echo 7, but the precision will be affected. Understood, Chief, Elena replied. Do your best. We need to make our point clearly. On Hellion Station, Major Velta detected the change immediately. General Arcanus, energy fluctuations from the human vessel. They're preparing to move. Arcanus rushed to the main view screen. All vessels, target the Valiant, fire at will. The Imperial patrol ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams and projectiles converging on the human battleship from all directions. At the same moment, the heavy weapons platforms on Hellion Station unleashed their power, filling space with destructive energy. But the Valiant was already changing. A shimmer surrounded the vessel as its cross-dimensional drive engaged. Rather than disappearing completely, however, the ship executed a series of micro-jumps, appearing and disappearing at different points around the station, never remaining in one place long enough to sustain damage. Impossible! Soren exclaimed, as the Valiant flickered in and out of existence, evading every attack while steadily approaching the station itself. Arcanus watched in growing horror as the human vessel executed maneuvers that defied conventional physics. Recalibrate targeting systems. Predict their movements. We can't, sir, Velta replied, her voice strained. There's no pattern to their appearances. It's as if they're shifting between multiple points in space simultaneously. With each micro-jump, the Valiant drew closer to Hellion Station. Imperial weapons fire became increasingly desperate, with patrol vessels accidentally hitting each other as they attempted to target the elusive human ship. When the Valiant was just 5,000 kilometers from the station, practically point-blank range in space combat, Elena gave her final order. Execute Spatial Penetration Strike. This was the culmination of their mission, the demonstration that would force the Empire to recognize humanity's new status. The Valiant's cross-dimensional drive engaged one final time, but instead of moving the ship, it projected a concentrated burst of dimensional energy directly at Hellion Station. The burst struck the station's primary defense grid, passing through conventional shields as if they didn't exist, and temporarily disrupting the phase coherence of the station's weapon systems. In an instant, every weapon on Hellion Station went offline, leaving it defenseless. Simultaneously, the Valiant completed one final jump, positioning itself directly before the station's main docking bay, a position that no enemy vessel had ever reached in the station's history. Inside the station, alarms blared as systems failed across the board. Emergency power activated, bathing the command center in red light as Arcanus and his officers struggled to comprehend what had happened. Status report, Arcanus demanded. Primary and secondary weapon systems offline. an officer reported, panic evident in his voice. Shields inoperative. Power fluctuations throughout the station. The human vessel is directly outside our main docking bay, Velta added, her voice barely above a whisper. They could fire directly into the station's heart. Arcanus stared at the view screen in disbelief. The sleek form of the Valiant hovered before them, unscathed despite the massive barrage it had just evaded. In that moment, he understood with perfect clarity that everything had changed. The Empire's technological superiority, the foundation upon which its expansion had been built, was no longer assured. "Open a channel to the Valiant," he ordered, his voice subdued. Elena's face appeared on the view screen, her expression resolute. "General Arcanus, I trust our demonstration has made our position clear." Arcanus straightened, maintaining his dignity, despite the circumstances. "You have made your point, Commodore. What happens now?" "Now we talk," Elena replied. "Genuine negotiation between equals. Humanity does not seek conflict with the Empire. General Arcanus, we seek recognition and respect. We seek cooperation rather than domination." "You speak of peace while threatening destruction," Arcanus observed. Elena's expression softened slightly. "We demonstrated capability, not intent. Had we wished to destroy Hylian Station, we could have done so at any time. Instead, we temporarily disabled your weapons. They will return to full functionality within approximately 1 hour. And the reinforcements approaching from the outer system are welcome to join our discussion," Elena replied calmly. "But I suggest you advise them that hostile action would be unproductive." Arcanus considered his options. The battle group approaching would face the same technological disadvantage that had just been so dramatically demonstrated. Continuing the conflict would likely result in significant Imperial losses, with little chance of victory. "Very well, Commodore," he said finally. "I invite you to dock at Hylian Station. We will begin formal negotiations." Elena nodded. "Thank you, General. I accept your invitation. I will shuttle over with a small delegation within the hour." As the communication ended, Colonel Sorin approached Arcanus, his expression thunderous. "General, you cannot seriously intend to negotiate with these humans after such an insult to Imperial dignity." Arcanus turned to his subordinate, his expression cold. "Colonel, we have just witnessed technology that renders our entire defense strategy obsolete. The Empire has always survived by adapting to new realities. This is such a moment." "But enough!" Arcanus cut him off. "Contact the battle group. Order them to take up defensive positions but to refrain from hostile action unless directly attacked. Then prepare the diplomatic chamber for our guests." As Sorin departed, still seething with anger, Major Velta approached hesitantly. "General, may I speak freely?" Arcanus nodded wearily. "Always, Major." "What the humans demonstrated today, it changes everything, doesn't it?" she asked quietly. Arcanus stared at the view screen, where the Valiant continued to hover serenely outside the station. "Yes, Major. For centuries, the Empire has expanded based on technological superiority. Today, that age ended." He straightened his uniform. "Now we must learn a skill the Empire has rarely needed: diplomacy between equals." Aboard the Valiant, the mood was one of cautious celebration. The mission had succeeded. They had demonstrated humanity's new capabilities and forced the Empire to the negotiating table without casualties on either side. "Well done, everyone," Elena addressed her bridge crew. "But remember, this is just the beginning. The real challenge starts now." Commander Santiago approached her as the crew prepared for the upcoming negotiations. "The shuttle is being prepared. Commodore, who will comprise your delegation?" "Myself, you, Lieutenant Ruiz for communications, and Dr. Harper as our scientific advisor." Elena decided. Nakamura needs to remain with the ship to monitor the cross-dimensional drive. Santiago nodded. A historic moment. Let's hope it's remembered for the right reasons, Elena replied. Within the hour, Elena and her delegation shuttled across to Helion Station. The diplomatic chamber had been prepared, a circular room with a large round table, symbolizing equality among participants. General Arcanus awaited them, along with Ambassador Calera, Commander Telvik, and several other Imperial officials. As Elena entered, she noted the absence of Colonel Soren, likely a deliberate choice by Arcanus, to set a more conciliatory tone for the negotiations. Commodore Reyes, Arcanus greeted her formally. Welcome to Helion Station. Thank you, General, Elena replied. I appreciate your hospitality under these unusual circumstances. They took their seats around the table, humans on one side, Imperial representatives on the other. The symbolic divide was clear, but the fact that they sat at the same table represented a significant shift in the relationship between humanity and the Empire. Before we begin formal negotiations, Elena said, I wish to emphasize that humanity's demonstration today was not intended as a threat, but as a necessary redefinition of our relationship. For too long, the Empire has viewed humanity as a minor power to be managed rather than engaged with as equals. Your method of making this point was rather dramatic, Commodore, Arcanus observed dryly. Elena met his gaze steadily. Would you have agreed to meaningful negotiations otherwise, General? After a moment of tense silence, Arcanus inclined his head slightly. Perhaps not. The Empire has traditions regarding diplomatic relationships. Those traditions must evolve, Elena stated firmly. The technology we demonstrated today, cross-dimensional transit, fundamentally changes the nature of space travel and defense. Traditional boundaries and barriers are no longer effective against vessels equipped with this capability. Commander Telvik leaned forward, scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic caution. How does this technology function? Our preliminary analysis suggests some form of quantum manipulation, but the specific mechanism eludes us. Dr. Harper, the Valiant's scientific advisor, responded carefully. The technical details remain classified, Commander. However, I can confirm that it involves the manipulation of spatial dimensions beyond the conventional four we typically experience. In essence, we can temporarily shift a vessel, or portions of it, into adjacent dimensional spaces, allowing us to reappear at different coordinates in normal space. Telvik's eyes widened. Fascinating. The theoretical implications alone are secondary to the practical realities we now face. Arcanus interrupted. Commodore Reyes, what precisely does humanity seek from these negotiations? Elena had prepared for this question. We propose the Helion Accord, a formal treaty recognizing humanity's sovereign status and establishing protocols for interaction between our civilizations. This would include non-aggression provisions, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and joint scientific ventures. Joint ventures? Ambassador Calera asked skeptically. You expect us to share Imperial technology? We expect mutual exchange, Elena clarified. The Empire possesses technologies that would benefit humanity, just as we have developed advances that could benefit the Empire. Cooperation serves both our interests better than conflict. The negotiations continued for hours, delving into specific provisions and addressing concerns from both sides. Throughout the discussions, Arcanus observed Elena carefully, his initial hostility gradually giving way to a grudging respect for her diplomatic skill and vision. As the first day of negotiations concluded, Arcanus requested a private word with Elena. They stood before the massive viewport in the diplomatic chamber, the stars spread before them like distant witnesses to the historic events unfolding. Your demonstration today was impressive, Commodore, Arcanus admitted. But I must ask, why reveal this capability now? Surely maintaining the element of surprise would have given humanity a strategic advantage. Elena considered her response carefully. Because secrets breed fear, General, and fear leads to conflict. By demonstrating our capabilities openly and then immediately seeking dialogue, we hope to establish a foundation of mutual understanding rather than mutual suspicion. A noble sentiment, Arcanus replied, but one that assumes goodwill on both sides. Does the Empire lack goodwill, General? Elena asked directly. Arcanus was silent for a moment. The Empire has survived for millennia by maintaining superiority, technological, military, economic. Your demonstration today challenges that fundamental principle. Perhaps it's time for a new principle, Elena suggested. Cooperation rather than domination. Partnership rather than subjugation. You speak of changing the course of an empire that has existed for thousands of years, Arcanus said. His tone, somewhere between skepticism and wonder. Elena gazed out at the stars. All great civilizations must evolve or perish. General, history has taught us that lesson repeatedly. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication. Colonel Soren had acted independently, ordering the approaching battle group to prepare for an attack on the Valiant, despite Arcanus's direct orders to the contrary. Arcanus's face darkened with anger. Excuse me, Commodore. It seems I have a subordinate to discipline. He strode from the chamber, already issuing commands to countermand Soren's orders. Elena returned to her delegation, briefing them on the situation. It seems not everyone in the Imperial hierarchy embraces change as readily as we might hope. Santiago frowned. Should we return to the Valiant? If this Colonel Soren is acting independently... No, Elena decided after a moment's consideration. Returning now would signal distrust. Besides, the Valiant is more than capable of defending itself if necessary. Within the hour, Arcanus returned, his expression grim, but controlled. Colonel Soren has been relieved of duty and placed under arrest for insubordination. The battle group has been instructed to maintain a non-aggressive posture. You have my personal assurance that no further unauthorized actions will occur. Elena nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you, General. Your swift response speaks well for the possibility of trust between us. The negotiations resumed the following day, with renewed focus. As the discussions progressed, the outline of the Helian Accord began to take shape, a comprehensive treaty that would fundamentally restructure the relationship between humanity and the Galactic Empire. On the third day of negotiations, with the main provisions of the Accord agreed upon, Ambassador Kalara raised a question that had lingered unspoken throughout the proceedings. Commodore Reyes, how many other vessels has Earth equipped with this cross-dimensional technology? The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to Elena. It was a crucial question. The answer would significantly impact the strategic calculations of the Empire moving forward. Elena met Kalara's gaze steadily. That information remains classified. Ambassador, what I can tell you is that the Valiant represents the culmination of decades of research and development. It is not unique. The implication was clear. Humanity possessed a fleet of vessels with similar capabilities. Whether this was true or not was irrelevant. The demonstration by the Valiant had established the possibility, and uncertainty would encourage caution in imperial military planning. On the final day of negotiations, the Helian Accord was formally signed in the station's Grand Assembly Hall. The ceremony was broadcast throughout the Empire and back to Earth, a public acknowledgement of the new relationship between the two powers. General Arcanus and Commodore Reyes stood side by side as the document was sealed, their initial antagonism having evolved into a complex mutual respect over the course of the negotiations. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in the history of both our peoples, Elena declared in her formal address. Humanity came to Helian Station, not to challenge the Empire's existence, but to challenge its perspective. We demonstrated that traditional boundaries can be transcended not only in space, but in diplomacy and cooperation as well. Arcanus spoke next, his words carefully measured. The Empire has stood for millennia as a beacon of order and progress in the galaxy. Today, we recognize that progress sometimes requires us to reconsider our assumptions and embrace new possibilities. The Helion Accord represents not a concession, but an evolution in imperial policy, one that I believe will benefit all our peoples in the centuries to come. As the ceremony concluded, Elena prepared to return to the Valiant. Before departing, she shared a final private moment with Arcanus. "You've changed the course of history, Commodore," he observed. "Few individuals can claim such an achievement." Elena smiled slightly. "We've changed it together, General. Your willingness to adapt rather than escalate made this possible." "The Empire adapts to survive," Arcanus replied simply. "But I wonder, what will happen when we develop our own cross-dimensional technology? Will this peace endure?" "That depends on the foundations we build now," Elena said. "Technology changes, General Arcanus, but principles can endure. If we establish mutual respect and cooperation as our guiding principles, they can survive technological parity." Arcanus considered this. "A philosopher as well as a warrior, your species continues to surprise me, Commodore Reyes." "I hope we continue to do so in positive ways," Elena replied. "Farewell, General, until our next meeting." As Elena's shuttle departed Helion Station, returning to the Valiant, she reflected on the events of the past few days. The mission had succeeded beyond expectations, establishing humanity as a power to be reckoned with, while avoiding the bloodshed that many had feared inevitable. The Valiant's demonstration had changed the galaxy's political landscape overnight. The cross-dimensional technology that had made it possible represented humanity's greatest achievement. But Elena understood that technology alone was not enough. It was how that technology was used, with restraint, purpose, and a commitment to peace rather than domination, that had truly made the difference. As the Valiant prepared to return to Earth, carrying news of the historic Helion Accord, Elena addressed her crew one final time. "What we accomplished here will be remembered for generations, not because we demonstrated superior technology, but because we used that technology to forge understanding rather than conflict. Humanity did not come to conquer the stars, but to join them as equals. Today, we took the first step on that journey." With that, the Valiant engaged its cross-dimensional drive, slipping between the fabric of space-time to begin its journey home, leaving behind a transformed relationship between humanity and the Galactic Empire, and opening a new chapter in the history of both civilizations. In the command center of Helion Station, General Arcanus watched the energy signature of the Valiant disappear from their sensors. Major Velta stood beside him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you believe they'll honor the accord, sir?" she asked quietly. Arcanus considered the question carefully. "I believe Commodore Reyes will. As for the rest of humanity," he shrugged slightly. "Time will tell. But one thing is certain. Major, the galaxy is a different place today than it was a week ago." "Because of their technology?" Velta asked. "No," Arcanus replied, surprising himself with the realization. "Because for the first time in centuries, the Empire encountered a power that could have chosen domination, but instead chose cooperation. That example may prove more revolutionary than any technology." As the stars continued their eternal dance beyond the viewport, Arcanus turned his attention to the task of implementing the provisions of the Helion Accord and preparing the Empire for a future where they were no longer the unchallenged masters of the galaxy, but partners in a more complex and potentially richer cosmic community. The panic that had gripped Helion Station when the human battleship first appeared had transformed into something else entirely. The first tentative steps toward genuine understanding between two civilizations that had viewed each other with suspicion for generations. It was a beginning rather than an end. Uncertain, challenging, but filled with possibility. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space between dimensions, the Valiant continued its journey home, carrying the promise of that new beginning back to Earth, and to whatever future awaited humanity among the stars.